Thank you so much for joining this talk today. And I'm going to talk about user-centered data minimization design in search engine. And this is a part of my work I did during my research visit at Max Planck with Asha. And to start with, earlier this year, I was preparing for job talk. And I was working on how to improve my presentation skill. So without even trying very hard, I started seeing tons of public speaking videos on Instagram and from various influencers after searching it in Google just several times. And honestly, that was very convenient for me because I was getting exactly what I needed at that moment. And it's like that different platforms were perfectly synced with my preferences. Now, here's an example from a participant in this study who lives in Hungary, and he was looking for doctors for his wife's ovarian cancer, and then started seeing event suggestion on Facebook and ads on Google. And he got worried that this search might affect their health insurance benefit because Hungary is a state-managed universal healthcare system. So he switched to using incognito mode for this kind of searches. And the fear is that his search data would be connected to government health insurance record, which he thinks is not necessary for the purpose of his search. So this brings to this particular privacy principle in EU called data minimization. So data minimization is a legal and privacy by design principle that says online service should only collect data that they need for specific purpose. And this means that data should be adequate, relevant, and limited what it is necessary for. And there are some approaches of data minimization has been currently handled, one of which is a work from Google presented during the USENIX paper I attended last year on designing private logging pipeline. And they framed data minimization as defining its purpose within the context of the applications, which is great. What they did is they enforce policies on device, so unnecessary data is prevented from leaving the user's client applications. On the server side, various stakeholders only access to the data they need. Now, defining the need is crucial here, which directly ties back to the two principles of data minimization, which is necessity and relevancy. And the limitations of this conventional system-based approach is that it attributes the sole responsibility to the service provider. Now, some computational approach also exists, where my collaborators reason about data minimizations by linking the purpose to performance metrics in certain services, and they proposed a framework to limit data collection tied to system performance. However, the limitation of such automated approach is that they might not always capture the context-dependent perception of the necessity of the system users. So to address this gap and complement this existing regulatory and system-based approach, this project explores a user-centered approach. So what we did is we conducted two studies with both users and privacy experts. Also, data minimization's implementation can be very context-dependent. So we focused our study in the domain of web search engine. So we explored these key questions about the design for data minimization, specifically how users expect it to work in the search engine and what shapes their preference and expectation. First, we asked users about their understanding of data minimization and had them sketch out how they think it should work in search engine. And this derives a set of conceptual design which necessarily influenced by users' contextual risk perceptions and decision-making factors. And we had 25 users from EU and UK. And after collecting this user's design concept, we interviewed experts to see how practical those design proposed by the users. So each expert evaluated 3 concepts. So for selecting experts, what we did is we included those with expertise in technical, legal, policy, and research aspect of search engine, data minimizations, or privacy, whether from industry or academia. Next, some of the insight on main factor that influencing users' decisions on data minimization designs are their perception of how much data is needed to generate good search result. And they rationalize these decisions on their what they consider reasonably good search result. And most users feel that if they were searching for political topic, the data should only be kept for a few days to few weeks. One participant, an anecdote from P21, compared political data to location data, saying that he might need to find different restaurant as his preference might change over time, but political preference don't change. So he didn't think search engine needs his political search data to improve result. And now for location data, opinions were quite mixed. Some felt that search engine didn't need to store location data to provide good search results. For say, finding a coffee shop, search engine could generate reasonably good answer real time. Others felt that continuous location data was needed for accuracy, but were also worried about privacy. For example, one of the participants mentioned when using Google search engine or Google Map, P19 set his home address to his next door neighbors to avoid giving away his own home location. And there are some other factors, including type of search data, willingness to share data to improve results for other users. But for the sake of the time, I will not go over all of the details. Now, from the sketching exercise with users, we identified 5 key design ideas. And I will give you some of the example, and also this part of the results serve as the design recommendation for this talk and for future work. So one of the design participants imagined a feature called sensitivity-based search customization. So where search engine assign a sensitivity score to search keyword and prompts users to switch into private mode or ask if this search data should be collected for future use. And now when we evaluated this with experts, they think this design is feasible. But what they suggest is that adding noise or discarding the data at the query stage without sending this to the server. And they compared this to trusted execution environment that could identify the sensitive queries with pattern matching and alert users and discard the data locally. And another design suggested by users was an option to specify if the search they performed were for themselves or for others. And this is mainly to protect uninvolved parties like parents and children from being at risk when they might be searching something for their family members. So experts found this idea impractical. They argued that unless the search engine guarantees no data collections from the other search option, then it would not serve the purpose. Instead, it might store more labeled data, which will be for their families, and create shadow profile for non-internet users, like their children. What they suggest is that keeping all the search together maintains a certain level of privacy due to the noise. And another design was participants suggested to a slider for configuring the volume and the retention durations of data of a given type based on their own specific search importance and sensitivity level. And experts find its practicals. On top of that, they mentioned that similar functionalities they already performed for their client when they sign a cloud rental agreement in different countries and continents. So necessarily this could be implemented in user side as well. And another design suggested by participants was a systematic way to willingly share certain search data to receive incentive in context of data minimization. And they view data collection as a form of payment. They prefer models like Brave and Microsoft Edge, where user can voluntarily share data in exchange of incentive, a form of cryptocurrency, like Brave cryptocurrency. A common view among the users is that it's not really possible to be online and not giving any data, or they think that they need to trust the service provider to some extent. So a common view among users is that, all right, so the experts view these data sharing incentives are not related to data minimizations. However, our findings suggest that from the user side, this data sharing incentive can create a collaborative space where users and companies can negotiate data usage and establish ownership, and can provide users control over their data and to minimize it. And you can also draw certain similarities from decentralized data market and value exchange models that has been designed for fair trade and autonomy. And this could be a future avenue for to work on and to look into. With that, I conclude my presentation and be happy to take any questions you have.